My son Kyle called while I was still recovering from heart surgery, but his next words made my heart stop. "Dad, we're just 3 now, me, Michelle, Sophie," he announced, his voice flat and mechanical. "You need to find somewhere else because you're a lot to handle right now." I stood there in the rain, my key no longer fitting the locks on the house I'd paid for. 6 months later, they discovered the foreclosure notice in their yard. They never saw it coming. But that evening when I came home from the hospital, I had no idea what was waiting for me. The rain came down harder as I stood there on the porch. My porch, the one I'd refinished 3 summers ago with Kyle, teaching him how to sand against the grain, how to apply the stain evenly. That porch now belonged to people who'd locked me out. I tried the key again. The metal scraped against metal that didn't match anymore. They changed the locks. My hands shook as I twisted the key harder, as if forcing it would somehow make reality different. The surgical scar on my chest pulled tight when I reached up to knock on the door. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. The sound echoed through the quiet neighborhood, bouncing off houses where families were probably sitting down to dinner together. Normal families. Families that didn't abandon their fathers in the rain after life-saving surgery. The windows stayed dark. I circled around to the back, my shoes squelching through the mud I'd planted Sophie's sunflowers in last spring. Those sunflowers were gone now, replaced by decorative stones. Clean, impersonal, the kind of landscaping you did when you wanted to erase memories. I checked every door. The back door with the sticky handle I'd been meaning to fix. The side door that led to the garage where I taught Kyle to change a tire when he was 16. The sliding glass door where Sophie had pressed her nose against the glass every time I came to visit, leaving smudges shaped like stars. All locked. I pulled out my phone. My fingers felt numb as I scrolled through my contacts. Kyle's number sat right there at the top under favorites. I'd labeled it that myself 2 years ago, back when I thought that word meant something. He answered on the 4th ring. "Dad." Not a greeting, a statement. Like he'd been expecting this call and dreading it. "Kyle, I'm standing outside the house. The key doesn't work." Silence stretched between us. I could hear a TV in the background, the laugh track from some sitcom. Normal life continuing while mine fell apart in the rain. "We talked about this, Dad." My chest tightened. "Talked about what?" "I've been in the hospital for nearly a month." "When exactly did we talk about this?" "We're just 3 now. Me, Michelle, Sophie. You need to find somewhere else." The words hit like a second heart attack. I leaned against the garage door, the cold metal seeping through my jacket. Inside that garage sat Kyle's car, the one I'd paid off 18 months ago when he and Michelle said they were drowning in debt. The $34,876 I'd written the check for without hesitation because that's what fathers did. "Kyle, I almost lost my life." "I know, Dad. And we're glad you're okay. But Michelle and I have been talking, and we need space. We're planning a cruise, a fresh start. You're a lot to handle right now. A lot to handle." I'd spent 28 days in a hospital bed, tubes running out of me like some science fiction nightmare, fighting to stay alive so I could come home to my family. And I was a lot to handle. "I paid for this house, Kyle. Look, I got to go." "Figure it out, Dad." The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone. The screen went dark. My reflection stared back at me from the black surface. A 62-year-old man soaked to the skin, locked out of his own home by the son he'd raised and supported and loved without reservation. The suitcase. I'd almost forgotten about it. There by the garage door, half hidden behind the trash cans. My old Navy duffel bag. The one Linda had bought me when we took that trip to Alaska 15 years ago. Back when she was alive and the world made sense. I opened it. My clothes had been thrown in without care. Shirts wrinkled. Pants bunched up. No coat, even though Seattle in October meant rain and cold. At the bottom, tucked between a pair of jeans and some socks, I found a note. Kyle's handwriting. The same looping scrawl he'd used when he was 8 years old, writing thank you notes for birthday presents. "We're just 3 now. Find somewhere else. Your son. Your son." Not love, Kyle. Not even sorry. Just a reminder of the biological connection, as if that somehow justified everything. I stood there in the rain, holding that note, feeling the water blur the ink. The neighbor's porch light flicked on. Mrs. Henderson peered out through her window, then quickly looked away when she saw me staring back. She knew. They all probably knew. Small neighborhood. Word traveled fast. Thomas Brennan's son kicked him out. Did you hear? Right after heart surgery. Terrible thing. I needed somewhere to go. The motel on Pike Street still had its vacancy sign lit up. The same motel I'd stayed at after Linda's funeral, when the house had felt too empty and the silence too loud. The desk clerk didn't recognize me. Why would he? I was just another person looking for a bed for the night. Room 237. The elevator didn't work, so I climbed the stairs, my chest protesting with each step. The doctor had said no strenuous activity for at least 6 weeks. I wondered if getting kicked out of your house counted as strenuous. The room smelled exactly as I remembered. Damp carpet, stale coffee, cheap air freshener trying to mask both. The bed sagged in the middle. The TV remote had 3 buttons that didn't work. The view from the window showed the parking lot and, beyond that, the highway where cars drove past toward homes and families and lives that made sense. I unpacked the duffel bag. 28 days in the hospital, and this is what my life had been reduced to. Wrinkled shirts, mismatched socks, a photo that fell out when I shook out a pair of pants. Sophie. She was 6 in this picture, holding up a drawing she'd made for me. A rainbow made with crayons, the colors bleeding into each other the way kids' art did. She'd been so proud of it. It's for you, Grandpa, because you make everything brighter. I'd kept that drawing on my refrigerator until the day I went into the hospital. I wondered if it was still there or if they'd thrown it away along with me. I set the photo on the nightstand. Sophie's smile looked out at me from that captured moment. Back when I thought I understood what family meant. The bed creaked when I sat down. The springs had seen better days. So had I. My phone buzzed. For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe Kyle had changed his mind. Maybe this was all some terrible misunderstanding. It was a reminder about my follow-up appointment with Dr. Richardson. 2 days from now. I'd need to explain why I wasn't recovering at home with family support like he'd recommended. I lay back on the bed. The ceiling had water stains shaped like continents. Europe, Africa, imaginary worlds that probably made more sense than the real one. Tomorrow I would figure things out. Tonight I would just exist in this room that smelled like defeat and try to remember when everything had gone wrong. The next morning arrived gray and cold. I'd slept maybe 3 hours, waking every time a car door slammed in the parking lot or someone walked past in the hallway. The kind of sleep where you're never quite sure if you're awake or dreaming, and both options feel equally unpleasant. I called Patricia Chun at 8:47 a.m. We'd worked together 15 years ago at the same architectural firm before she'd gone to law school and become a real estate attorney. We'd stayed in touch over the years. Holiday cards, occasional lunches, the kind of friendship that didn't demand constant attention but remained solid when you needed it. She answered on the second ring. Thomas? You're supposed to be recovering at home. Can we meet? I need advice. Of course. Coffee? The usual place. The usual place was Café Umbria on Occidental. We'd met there dozens of times over the years, sitting at the corner table by the window, solving the world's problems over espresso and scones. I got there first, ordered black coffee because my stomach couldn't handle anything else. The barista gave me a concerned look when I fumbled with my wallet, my fingers still not quite working right after all the 4 lines and medications. Patricia arrived 10 minutes later. She took one look at me and sat down without ordering anything. Tell me what happened. So I did. All of it. The phone call from Kyle. The locked doors. The suitcase in the rain. The note. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder with each detail. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. You paid for their house? The mortgage. Kyle's name is on the title, but I signed all the loan papers. He was supposed to pay me back, but I shrugged. It was family. I didn't push it. How much total? The house was $478,000. I've been making the monthly payments for 2 years. $2,893 every month. Patricia pulled out a legal pad from her bag. She always carried one. Lawyer habit. She started writing, her pen moving fast across the paper. What about the car you mentioned? $34,876. Paid it off completely 18 months ago. Sophie's school? Private elementary. St. Catherine's. $18,200 a year. I've been covering it since she started kindergarten. She's in second grade now. Patricia kept writing. The numbers added up on the page. A ledger of love turned into evidence. Thomas, you have options here. Like what? She looked up from the pad. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. The same expression she probably wore in courtroom negotiations. You're the mortgage holder. The loan is in your name. Kyle might be on the title, but without your payments, that house goes into foreclosure. You have leverage. Leverage. The word felt foreign. I'd never thought about having leverage over my own son. I don't want to hurt him. He hurt you. Left you standing in the rain after heart surgery. With a note, Thomas. Not even a conversation. A note. The coffee had gone cold. I drank it anyway. What are you suggesting? Stop making the payments. Let the bank send the warnings. Force Kyle to face the reality of what he's done. Either he pays for the house himself, or he loses it. That seems fair? Because it is. He's an adult who made a choice. Now he lives with the consequences. We sat there in silence for a while. Outside the window, people walked past. Tourists heading to Pike Place Market. Business people rushing to meetings. Regular people living regular lives where sons didn't lock their fathers out of houses they'd paid for. I need to think about it. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Take your time. But Thomas, whatever you decide, I'm here. You're not alone in this. That night, I went back to the motel room. Room 237, my temporary home. I sat on the sagging bed with the photo of Sophie and thought about everything Patricia had said. Leverage, consequences, reality. I thought about the hospital, the beeping machines, the oxygen mask, the moment when the doctors told me there was a 50-50 chance I wouldn't survive the surgery. I thought about Kyle then, about Sophie, about getting home to family, the family that locked me out. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Kyle's number. My finger hovered over the call button. What would I even say? Please let me back in? I'm sorry for being a lot to handle. I promise to disappear quietly somewhere else so you can enjoy your cruise. I put the phone down. Then I opened my banking app. The mortgage payment was scheduled to process in 3 days. Automatic withdrawal. Same day every month for 24 months. $2,893 that I apparently owed them for the privilege of having raised Kyle and supported his family. I canceled the automatic payment. My finger shook when I pressed confirm. This wasn't something you could take back easily. This was burning a bridge and salting the earth where it stood. The confirmation message appeared on the screen. Automatic payment canceled. I set the phone down, stared at it like it might explode. Nothing happened. The ceiling still had its water-stained countenance. The carpet still smelled damp. The bed still sagged in the middle. But something had shifted. Some weight I'd been carrying without realizing it. I called Patricia. I canceled the payment. Good. Now we wait. Waiting turned out to be its own special kind of torture. Days crawled past in that motel room. I went to my follow-up appointment with Dr. Richardson. He was pleased with my recovery. Asked about my home situation. I lied and said everything was fine. He didn't need to know that home was a motel room with a view of a parking lot. 2 weeks after I canceled the payment, Patricia called. The bank sent the first notice to Kyle's address. They have 30 days to make the payment or they start the formal warning process. Will he call? If he's smart, yes. Kyle didn't call. Instead, 3 weeks later, Michelle sent a text. The first communication I'd had from either of them since that night in the rain. Thomas, there seems to be a problem with the mortgage payment. The bank is saying it's late. Can you look into this? Not Dad. Not we need to talk. Just a casual request to fix a problem, as if I were customer service for their life. I didn't respond. 2 days later, another text. Thomas, this is serious. The bank is charging late fees. Please call them. Still nothing from Kyle himself. I met Patricia at the cafe again. She brought a briefcase this time. More serious business. They got the warning. Good. Now we take the next step. Which is? We file a formal complaint about Michelle's business income. She runs an interior design company, right? Works mostly with clients paying cash. I'm willing to bet she's not reporting all of it. How do you know that? Patricia smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, because I did some checking. Michelle's business license shows annual reported income of $62,000. But she drives a BMW X5 that costs $73,000. She wears clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her Instagram shows dining at restaurants where a meal for two costs $300. You can't maintain that lifestyle on $62,000 a year, not with a kid and a house payment they can't afford. You investigated her? I protected you. There's a difference. Patricia slid papers across the table. Legal documents. Forms. Official-looking things with seals and signatures. Sign these. We file with the IRS. They audit her business. If she's been underreporting income, she loses clients, pays penalties, possibly faces charges. It's the leverage we need to make sure they understand consequences. I looked at the papers. Black text on white paper. My signature would make all of this real and irreversible. I thought about Sophie, about how this would affect her. Then I thought about standing in the rain with a suitcase, reading a note that said, "Find somewhere else." I signed the papers. Patricia drove me to her attorney's office. A place downtown with marble floors and expensive art on the walls. The kind of place where serious things happened, where lives changed. We met with Gerald Hawthorne, senior partner, gray hair, three-piece suit, the kind of attorney who probably charged more per hour than most people made in a week. He reviewed the documents, nodded, looked at me over reading glasses that cost more than my monthly motel rent. "Mr. Brennan, I want to make sure you understand what you're doing here. This complaint will trigger an investigation. If Mrs. Brennan has been underreporting income, the consequences will be severe. Her business reputation will suffer. Clients will lose confidence. She may face significant financial penalties." I understand. And you want to proceed? I thought about my son's voice on the phone. Flat. Mechanical. Figure it out, Dad. Yes. Gerald Hawthorne signed as witness. Patricia signed as my legal representative. The papers went into an official envelope with a government address. "We'll file today," Gerald said. "Her clients will start getting notices within 2 weeks." Word spreads fast in the interior design world. Fraud allegations are career killers. We left the office, stepped out into Seattle afternoon drizzle. The kind of rain that's more mist than actual drops. The kind that soaks through everything if you stand in it long enough. Patricia walked me to her car. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just declared war on my own family." "They declared it first. You're just fighting back." We drove back to the motel in silence. She pulled into the parking lot and turned to look at me. "Thomas, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. Are you ready for that?" "No. But I don't think I have a choice anymore." "You do. You could stop right now. Let it all go. Walk away." I thought about that. About just disappearing. Finding a new city. Starting over somewhere they'd never find me. Becoming one of those fathers who just vanished one day, leaving questions but no answers. I can't. Because if I walk away, what does that teach Sophie? That family doesn't matter? That you can treat people like garbage and they'll just accept it? Patricia nodded. Then we keep going. I got out of the car. She rolled down the window. "Thomas? For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing." I watched her drive away. Stood there in the parking lot of a motel that charged $68 a night, wondering how right was supposed to feel. Because right now it just felt like I was drowning and pulling everyone else down with me. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal documents and waiting. Patricia checked in daily. Sometimes we'd meet for coffee. Sometimes just a phone call. She became the only constant in a life that had exploded into chaos. The bank sent a second notice to Kyle's address. Then a third, each one more serious than the last. Formal warnings, legal terminology, threats of foreclosure proceedings. Kyle still didn't call me. Michelle sent 3 more texts, each one progressively more desperate. Thomas, the bank is threatening foreclosure. We need to talk. This isn't fair. We have a family. You're hurting Sophie. Kyle said you were angry. I understand. Can we please work this out? I saved the texts. Patricia said they might be useful later. Documentation of their awareness, their attempts to manipulate, their complete lack of actual remorse or acknowledgement of what they'd done. For months after I canceled that first payment, the complaint about Michelle's business income started bearing fruit. Patricia called me at 7:32 in the morning. It's happening. The IRS sent preliminary notices to 6 of Michelle's clients asking them to provide documentation of payments made to her company. In interior design, that's a career killer. Clients don't want to work with someone under investigation. How do you know about the clients? I have sources. One of them works at the tax office. Not illegal, just information sharing. That afternoon, Michelle's business phone number started appearing in my call log. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. Her voice escalated from professional to panicked over the course of 5 messages. Thomas, I don't know what you did, but my clients are getting contacted by the IRS. This is my livelihood. Please call me back. I got 3 cancellations today. 3 major projects. People are talking. This is destroying my reputation. I know you're angry, but this is going too far. I have a daughter to support. The irony of that last message wasn't lost on me. She had a daughter to support. The same daughter she was willing to keep from her grandfather. The same daughter they were planning to take on a cruise with money they didn't actually have while I lived in a motel room. That evening, Patricia came by the motel. She brought takeout Chinese food from a place near her office. We sat on the sagging bed eating lo mein out of cardboard containers and reviewing the situation like it was a military campaign. The foreclosure process takes time, she explained between bites. We're at the 4-month mark. Bank will probably issue the formal foreclosure notice at 6 months. That gives Kyle and Michelle 2 months to either pay the back mortgage or work out a deal. What kind of deal? Sell the house, pay off the loan, walk away with whatever equity they have, which won't be much. I thought about that house, the kitchen where I'd taught Kyle to make pancakes, the backyard where Sophie learned to ride a bike, the living room where Linda and I had celebrated Christmases and birthdays and all the ordinary moments that made up a life. I never wanted the house. I just wanted them to see what they'd done. Patricia set down her container. Thomas, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to end badly for them. That's the point. That's the consequence. But you need to be okay with that, or this will destroy you along with them. I'm not okay with any of this, but I don't know how to stop it either. We finished the Chinese food in silence. Patricia gathered up the containers and threw them in the trash can by the door. She turned to look at me before leaving. You're stronger than you think. You survived heart surgery. You'll survive this too. After she left, I lay on the bed staring at Sophie's photo, wondering if I'd ever see her again, wondering if she asked about me, wondering if Kyle and Michelle told her I'd abandoned them, or if they'd made up some story about me being sick or traveling or just gone. The months blurred together after that. I developed a routine. Morning coffee at the cafe. Afternoon walks through Pike Place Market. Evening phone calls with Patricia reviewing the day's developments. The motel room became familiar, comfortable even. Room 237. My sanctuary of cheap carpet and water-stained ceilings. The IRS investigation into Michelle's business intensified. More clients got contacted. More projects were canceled. Patricia's sources reported that Michelle had gone from 12 active contracts to 3. Her Instagram went quiet. No more photos of expensive restaurants or designer clothes. Just silence. The mortgage missed the 6-month mark. The bank sent the formal foreclosure notice. Bright red letters on official paper. Notice of default. It went up in Kyle's yard like a flag announcing failure. I drove by the house one afternoon, not to confront them, just to see. The grass had grown too long. The paint was starting to peel on the window frames. The landscaping looked neglected. A moving truck sat in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched. Kyle and Michelle were loading boxes, furniture, their lives packed up and transported to somewhere else. Somewhere cheaper, probably. Somewhere without the burden of a mortgage they couldn't afford. They argued. I couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. Michelle's hands waved. Kyle's shoulders hunched. The kind of fight that came from months of stress and money problems and blame that needed somewhere to land. Michelle snapped something at Kyle. He responded with equal venom. Their voices rose loud enough that I caught fragments even from down the street. Your fault. Wanted him gone. Pushed him too far. Said he was a burden. So that's how it had happened. Michelle had orchestrated my exile. Kyle had gone along with it. They'd made a choice together, and now they were tearing each other apart over the consequences. A box fell off the truck. Sophie's toys spilled onto the driveway. Stuffed animals. Plastic kitchen set. The rainbow picture she'd drawn for me, now laminated and looking worse for wear. Kyle kicked one of the boxes in frustration. Michelle's phone rang. She answered, listened for maybe 10 seconds, then her face collapsed. She said something to Kyle. He punched the side of the moving truck. Neither bothered to pick up Sophie's toys. They just left them scattered on the pavement like everything else they'd broken. My phone buzzed. Patricia. I'm here. You're not alone. Where are you? 3 cars behind you. I figured you might drive by today. Moving trucks have a way of drawing attention. It's really happening. Yes. How does that feel? I watched Kyle struggle with a dresser. Watched Michelle stare at her phone like it held the answer to all their problems. Watched their lives fall apart in real time. Empty, I said. Feels empty. Patricia met me at the cafe an hour later. We sat at our usual table. She ordered espresso. I ordered black coffee. The barista knew our orders by now. Room 237 regular and his attorney friend. Michelle's business is finished, Patricia said without preamble. My source says the IRS found $187,000 in unreported income over 3 years. She'll pay penalties, interest, possible criminal charges if they decide to prosecute. And Kyle? Losing the house, credit destroyed, probably bankruptcy in his future if they can't figure something out. Sophie? Patricia's expression softened. She's 7 now, right? Kids are resilient. She'll be okay eventually. I wasn't so sure about that. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her grandfather disappeared because her parents were cruel? How do you make that make sense? I need to do something for Sophie, I said. A trust fund or something. Make sure she's taken care of no matter what happens. I can set that up. How much? I'd been thinking about this. I had my pension from the architectural firm, Social Security, some savings that hadn't been drained by Kyle's endless needs, Linda's life insurance policy that I'd never touched, $250,000. She gets access at 18 for education, full access at 25 for whatever she wants. Patricia wrote in her legal pad, I'll draft the papers. You'll need to set up a trustee, someone who isn't Kyle or Michelle. You. She looked up from the pad. Thomas, that's a big responsibility. I trust you. You're the only person who's been honest with me through all of this. If something happens to me, I want to know Sophie will be taken care of by someone who actually cares. She nodded. Okay, I'll do it. We finished our coffee, walked out into another Seattle afternoon. The rain had stopped. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds. The kind of light that made everything look washed clean and new. My phone buzzed. Kyle. I stared at the screen. His name with the favorite star I'd never bothered to remove. I answered. Hello, Dad. His voice cracked. Not the flat mechanical tone from 6 months ago. This was raw, broken, real. Dad, I messed up. I really messed up. Yes. Can we talk? Please? I need to see you. Part of me wanted to hang up, to make him feel the same dismissal he'd given me. Figure it out, Kyle. But he was still my son. Even after everything. Where? Not at the house. We're losing it. Can you come to the new place? The new place turned out to be an apartment complex on the south side. The kind with thin walls and parking spots that were too small. A different world from the house with the refinished porch and the yard where Sophie planted sunflowers. Kyle answered the door. He looked terrible. Weight loss. Dark circles under his eyes. The kind of worn down that came from months of stress and fighting and consequences catching up. Thanks for coming. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms. Cheap carpet. Walls that probably weren't white when they were new but had faded to a dingy off-white over years of different tenants. Boxes everywhere. None unpacked. Sophie's toys scattered among moving boxes like refugees from a better life. Kyle sat on a folding chair. The only furniture I could see. Michelle's at work. Sophie's at school. I wanted to talk to you alone. I'm listening. I don't know where to start. He rubbed his face with both hands. I was angry. When Mom passed away, I felt like you checked out. Like you didn't care anymore. Then you got sick and it scared me. I thought I was going to lose you too, and I wasn't ready for that. So you locked me out? Michelle said we needed space. That having you at the house would be too much stress during your recovery. That we needed to focus on our family first. I believed her. He looked up, tears in his eyes. I should have stood up to her. You're my father. But I didn't, and I'm sorry. Sorry. The word I'd been waiting to hear for 6 months. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt sad. Kyle, you left me in the rain. With a note. After heart surgery. I know. God, Dad, I know. And I can't take it back. I can't fix it. We lost the house. Michelle's business is destroyed. Her clients all dropped her after the IRS thing. We're drowning. The IRS thing. I kept my voice neutral. What happened there? She got investigated. Someone filed a complaint. They found unreported income. She has to pay it all back plus penalties. $267,000. We don't have that kind of money. We're looking at bankruptcy. Someone filed a complaint. I let that hang in the air between us. Kyle leaned forward. Dad, I know I have no right to ask anything from you. But Sophie, she keeps asking where you are. Why you don't visit anymore. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth. Which is that you made a choice. And choices have consequences. We sat there in that sad little apartment surrounded by boxes that held the remnants of a better life. Outside, I could hear kids playing. Cars driving by. Normal life happening for other people. I forgive you, I said finally. Because you're my son and I love you. But we're done, Kyle. You don't get to walk back in. You don't get to undo this. But Sophie, I'll see Sophie my way, not yours. I'm setting up a trust fund for her. Patricia Chun is the trustee. When she's 18, she'll have money for college. When she's 25, she'll have full access. You and Michelle don't get a say in that. Kyle's face went pale. You're cutting us out. I'm protecting her from you. There's a difference. I stood up. Kyle stood too, reaching out like he might hug me. I stepped back. I need to go. Dad, please. Don't leave like this. You left me standing in the rain, Kyle. Remember? Figure it out. I walked out of that apartment and didn't look back. Got in my rental car. Drove away from the South Side apartments and Kyle's desperate eyes and the weight of all those unpacked boxes. Patricia called while I was driving. How did it go? He apologized. I forgave him. But I can't forget. Fair enough. Where are you headed? Home. The motel? No. Actual home. Time to find one of those. I'd been living in room 237 for 6 months. Long enough. The motel manager, a guy named Frank who'd seen everything and was surprised by nothing, actually looked sad when I told him I was checking out. You one of the good ones, he said. Most people who stay this long, they got problems with addiction or the law. You just had bad luck with family. Thanks, Frank. You take care of yourself. And hey, that kid of yours? He don't deserve you. I found a small rental house on Seattle's outskirts. 2 bedrooms. Tiny yard. Cherry trees that were just starting to bloom even though it was late in the season. The landlord, A woman named Mrs. Chan, no relation to Patricia, didn't ask many questions. Just wanted first month, last month, and a promise I wouldn't cause trouble. Moving in took one trip. Everything I owned fit in the rental car. Clothes, Sophie's photo, some books, Linda's wedding ring that I kept in a small wooden box. That was it. That was my whole life condensed into 4 boxes and a duffel bag. The house felt enormous and empty. I bought a bed, a table, 2 chairs, a couch from a second-hand store. Basic furniture for a basic life. Patricia helped me set up the kitchen, insisting I needed actual plates instead of paper ones. "This is good," she said, looking around the small living room. "It's a fresh start. Feels more like an ending. Endings and beginnings are just different ways of looking at the same thing." She stayed for dinner. I cooked pasta. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti with sauce from a jar. But we sat at the little table and ate and talked about normal things. Her cases, my upcoming doctor's appointments, the weather, life. After she left, I stood in the small kitchen and looked at Sophie's rainbow drawing. I framed it, put it on the counter where I'd see it every day. A reminder that some things were worth fighting for even when the fight hurt everyone involved. My phone buzzed. Michelle this time. Not a text, an actual call. I stared at her name on the screen, considered not answering, but Patricia's words echoed in my head. "You're stronger than you think." I answered, "Michelle. Thomas, please. We need to talk. The IRS is demanding payment. My lawyer says I might face criminal charges. Everything's falling apart. You have to help us." "I don't have to do anything. But Sophie is taken care of. I set up a trust fund. Patricia Chun is the trustee. Sophie will be fine." Silence. Then, "You're really doing this? You're really going to destroy us?" "I didn't destroy you, Michelle. You did that yourself when you convinced Kyle to lock me out of the house I paid for. I never said to lock you out. I just said we needed space." "Space? That's what you're calling it? I was recovering from heart surgery and you wanted space." Her voice rose, defensive, angry. "You were always there, always hovering, always reminding us that you'd paid for things. Do you know what that's like? Living in a house where every wall reminds you that it's not really yours. Then you should have bought your own house. We couldn't afford." "Exactly. You couldn't afford it. So I paid. And you repaid me by throwing me out. Now you're dealing with the consequences of your choices. All of them." I hung up, blocked her number. Then I blocked Kyle's. Cut the last threads connecting me to that part of my life. The following weeks settled into a new rhythm. Morning coffee in my kitchen. Afternoon walks in the neighborhood. Evening dinners sometimes with Patricia, sometimes alone. Doctor's appointments where Dr. Richardson expressed satisfaction with my recovery. "You're healing well, Thomas. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." One Saturday morning, I drove to the park. The same park where I'd pushed Sophie on the swings, where I'd taught her to pump her legs and lean back and feel the wind in her face. I sat on a bench and watched other grandparents with their grandchildren. Wondered if any of them knew how lucky they were. Movement caught my eye. Sophie, 7 years old now, taller than I remembered, playing on the swings by herself while Kyle sat on a bench on the other side of the playground. He looked tired, beaten down, like someone carrying weight he couldn't quite manage. Sophie saw me. Her face lit up. "Grandpa!" She started running toward me. Kyle looked up, saw me. His expression went through surprise, anger, resignation, all in about 3 seconds. Then he just nodded. Permission, or maybe surrender. Sophie crashed into me with a hug. "Where have you been? I missed you so much." "I've been around, sweetheart. Just busy. Daddy said you were sick. Are you better now?" "I'm getting better every day." "Good. Can you push me on the swings? Like you used to?" I looked at Kyle. He nodded again, stood up and walked to his car, giving us space. Real space this time. The kind that came from acceptance rather than cruelty. I pushed Sophie on the swings. She laughed and kicked her legs and leaned back just like I taught her. And for those few minutes, everything else fell away. The locked doors, the foreclosure, the IRS investigation, the destroyed relationships. Just me and my granddaughter and the simple joy of a swing set on a Saturday morning. When Sophie's time was up, Kyle came back. Quiet, careful. Time to go, honey. Sophie hugged me. Will I see you again soon, Grandpa? Yes, I promise. They walked away. Kyle turned back once. Mouthed something that looked like, thank you. I nodded. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement that some things were bigger than our mess. I drove home to my small rental house. Patricia was waiting on the porch. She'd brought takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine. Saw Sophie today, I said. How was it? Perfect. Painful. Both. We sat on my tiny porch eating pad thai and drinking wine while the sun set behind the cherry trees. Patricia raised her glass. To new beginnings. I raised mine. To survival. Our glasses clinked. The wine tasted like possibility. Like maybe, eventually, life could be something other than just enduring. Inside, Sophie's rainbow drawing watched from its frame on the kitchen counter. A reminder that some colors stayed bright even after everything else faded to gray. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No motel noises. No water-stained ceiling. Just quiet and dark and the sound of cherry blossoms rustling in the breeze outside my window. I'd survived heart surgery. I'd survived betrayal. I'd survived losing almost everything that mattered. And somehow I was still here, still standing, still capable of pushing my granddaughter on a swing and feeling something close to happiness. The weight of family had almost crushed me, but I'd learned to carry it differently now. Not as obligation or sacrifice or endless giving without acknowledgement. Just as love for a little girl who drew rainbows in crayon and didn't understand yet why the world was so complicated. That was enough. That would always be enough. Patricia stayed for dinner again the next evening. It became our routine. 2 or 3 nights a week. She'd bring food and we'd sit at my small table and talk about everything and nothing. She told me about her cases. I told her about my walks in the neighborhood. We built a friendship in that small kitchen that felt solid in ways my family never had. You know what I've learned through all this? I said one evening over Chinese food. What's that? Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when everything goes wrong. She smiled, raised her glass of wine. To showing up. To showing up. The legal proceedings against Michelle continued. Patricia kept me informed but didn't press for details I didn't ask about. The IRS case was proceeding. Penalties were assessed. Michelle's lawyer was negotiating payment plans that would probably take years to satisfy. Kyle and Michelle's marriage was reportedly struggling. Patricia heard through her sources that they were in counseling. Fighting about money. Fighting about blame. Fighting about whose fault it all was. I felt sorry for them in an abstract way. The way you might feel sorry for characters in a sad movie. It was real and it was happening, but it was also removed from me now. Their consequences. Their choices. Their life to figure out. I focused on mine instead. Dr. Richardson cleared me for more physical activity. I started walking longer distances. Found a gym that catered to older people recovering from various ailments. Met a few other heart surgery survivors. We formed an informal group. Met for coffee sometimes. Shared stories about second chances and gratitude and learning to live with scars both visible and invisible. 3 months after moving into the rental house, I went to Patricia's office. She had the trust fund papers ready. Sign here, and here, initial here. I signed, made it official. $250,000 for Sophie. Patricia as trustee. Detailed instructions about education and access and what the money could be used for. She'll thank you someday, Patricia said. Maybe. Or maybe she'll resent me for destroying her parents' lives. You didn't destroy anything. You just stopped letting them destroy you. We filed the papers. Made it legal. Made it permanent. Whatever happened next, Sophie would be taken care of. Not by her parents. By her grandfather who loved her enough to make sure she had options they tried to take from him. That evening, I went back to the park. Same bench. Same view of the swing set. Kyle and Sophie weren't there. But I sat anyway, watching other families play, remembering better times when the world made more sense. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Brennan? This is Rachel Morrison from St. Catherine's School. I'm Sophie's second-grade teacher. My heart jumped. Is Sophie okay? She's fine. But I wanted to call because she's been asking about you. She mentions her grandpa a lot. Says you used to help with her homework and push her on swings. I did. I know this might be overstepping, but would you be interested in being a volunteer reader? We have a program where community members come read to the classes once a week. Sophie's face lit up when I mentioned it might be possible. A volunteer reader. Legitimate time with Sophie that didn't depend on Kyle or Michelle's permission or mood or willingness to let me back into their lives. I'd love to. Wonderful. Can you come by the school next week? We'll do a background check and get you set up. After she hung up, I sat there on the park bench and cried. Not sad tears. Not happy tears exactly. Just release. 6 months of tension and anger and hurt pouring out in that quiet moment on a bench in a park where I'd once pushed my granddaughter on swings. Life was finding a way forward. Not back to how it was. That was gone and probably shouldn't be recovered anyway. But forward to something new. Something that involved cherry trees and Thai food with friends and reading to second graders once a week. Patricia picked me up an hour later. I called her. She came without questions. We drove to a nice restaurant downtown. Celebrated with good food and better wine. To second chances, she said. To people who show up. Our glasses clinked. The next week I went to St. Catherine's. Met Rachel Morrison. Filled out forms. Submitted to a background check. Got a volunteer badge with my photo that said, Thomas Brennan Reading Volunteer. The first day I walked into Sophie's classroom. She squealed and ran to hug me. The other kids stared. Rachel Morrison smiled. Kyle and Michelle weren't there to stop it or control it or turn it into something ugly. I read Where the Wild Things Are. Sophie sat in the front row, her eyes wide, her smile bigger than her face. When I finished, she raised her hand. Yes, Sophie? Can you read it again, Grandpa? Please. So I read it again. And when I left that day, Sophie walked me to the door and hugged me one more time and whispered, I'm glad you're back. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Kyle was waiting in the parking lot when I came out. We stared at each other across the rows of cars. He looked like he wanted to say something. Maybe apologize again. Maybe ask for money. Maybe just acknowledge that life had become complicated in ways neither of us had anticipated. I nodded at him. He nodded back. Then I got in my car and drove away. Some relationships couldn't be fixed. The foundation was too broken. The trust too shattered. But maybe, with time and distance and careful boundaries, they could exist in the same world without destroying each other. That evening, Patricia and I celebrated at my house. She brought champagne. We toasted on the porch under the cherry trees. You did it, she said. You survived and you're building something better. We did it. I couldn't have done any of this without you. She squeezed my hand. That's what friends are for. We sat there as the sun set, watching the light fade from gold to pink to purple. The cherry blossoms fell around us like snow, beautiful and temporary and perfect in their impermanence. I thought about the note Kyle had left in the duffel bag. Find somewhere else. I'd found a small house with cherry trees, a friend who showed up when it mattered, a volunteer position reading to second graders, a granddaughter who still loved me despite everything her parents had done. I'd found somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere that was actually mine. The weight of family was still there. It always would be, but I'd learned to carry it differently now. Not as a burden that crushed me, but as a reminder that some relationships were worth fighting for, and some were worth letting go. Sophie was worth fighting for. My health was worth fighting for. My dignity was worth fighting for. Kyle and Michelle? They'd made their choices. They were living with the consequences. That was justice, even if it didn't feel satisfying the way I'd thought it would. I went inside and looked at Sophie's rainbow drawing. The colors were just as bright as the day she'd drawn them. Some things survived the storms. Some things stayed bright no matter how dark everything else became. I picked up my phone. Scrolled through my contacts. Deleted Kyle's number. Deleted Michelle's. Kept only Sophie's, the one Rachel Morrison had given me for emergency contact purposes. Cutting the last threads didn't hurt as much as I'd expected. It felt more like letting go of weight I'd been carrying for too long. Necessary and overdue and surprisingly freeing. That night I slept without dreams. No hospital machines beeping. No rain pounding on motel windows. No family members demanding pieces of me I didn't have left to give. Just quiet and dark and cherry blossoms rustling in the breeze. Morning came soft and golden. I made coffee in my kitchen. Sat at my small table. Looked at Sophie's rainbow and felt something close to peace. The doorbell rang at 9:15. Patricia, with bagels and cream cheese and the Sunday paper. "Thought you might want company," she said. "Always." We sat on the porch eating bagels and reading different sections of the paper, passing stories back and forth, commenting on world events and local news and the sports scores neither of us particularly cared about. Normal. Simple. Good. "What are you doing this week?" Patricia asked. "Reading at Sophie's school Wednesday. Follow-up with Dr. Richardson Thursday. Coffee with the heart surgery group Friday. You? Trial Monday through Wednesday. Settlement negotiations Thursday. Dinner with you Friday. It's a date." We sat in comfortable silence. The kind that came from real friendship rather than obligation or history or biological connection. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel Morrison. "Sophie keeps asking when you're coming back to read. The kids loved you. Any chance you could do twice a week?" I showed Patricia. She smiled. "Look at you. In demand. It's just reading to kids. It's being present for your granddaughter in a way that doesn't depend on her parents' approval or manipulation. That's huge, Thomas." She was right. Everything I was building now existed independently of Kyle and Michelle's choices. Sophie's trust fund. My volunteer position. My small house with cherry trees. My friendship with Patricia. I'd built a life that couldn't be locked out or taken away or reduced to a note in a duffel bag. "I'll do it," I texted back to Rachel. "Mondays and Wednesdays work for me." Patricia raised her coffee cup. "To Mondays and Wednesdays. To showing up." Our cups clinked. The weeks turned into months. The pattern held. Reading at Sophie's school twice a week. Coffee with Patricia 3 times. Heart surgery group on Fridays. Doctor's appointments that continued showing good recovery. A life built on small, consistent pieces rather than grand gestures or sacrifices that went unacknowledged. Kyle stopped waiting in the parking lot. Maybe Rachel Morrison had said something. Maybe he just accepted that this was how things were now. I'd see Sophie at school. He'd see her at home. We existed in parallel universes that occasionally touched but never fully merged. Michelle filed for bankruptcy. Patricia told me the details with professional detachment. The IRS penalties were too much. Her business income had dried up completely. Between that and the loss of the house, they had no choice. "Does that affect Sophie's trust fund?" I asked. "No. It's completely protected. They can't touch it even if they wanted to." Good. I felt less satisfaction than I'd expected at Michelle's downfall. It had seemed so important 6 months ago. Now it was just sad. Another casualty of choices made in anger and fear and desperation. The cherry trees bloomed fully that spring. Pink and white petals covering my yard like a celebration. Patricia helped me plant a garden. Tomatoes, basil, flowers whose names I could never remember but that attracted butterflies and hummingbirds. Dr. Richardson declared me fully recovered. "Your heart is stronger than ever," he said. "Whatever you've been doing, it's working." "Living differently," I told him. "That's what's working." On a Tuesday in late spring, I got a letter. Handwritten. Kyle's writing. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. "Dad, I won't ask for forgiveness again. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. Not just the practical stuff about money and the house, but the betrayal. The cruelty of leaving you standing in the rain after you'd nearly lost your life. Michelle and I are separated. Not because of the money, though that didn't help, but because we couldn't survive what we'd done to you, Every fight came back to that night. Every argument about money or stress or blame ended with, "This is all because of what you did to your father." She was right. It was my fault. I let her convince me you were a burden. I believed her when she said we needed space. I chose to lock you out instead of standing up for you. Sophie asks about you constantly. Rachel Morrison says you read to her class. Thank you for that. Thank you for finding a way to be in her life that doesn't depend on me being a better person than I've proven to be. I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness. Not money. Not another chance. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. I see what I lost. And I'm sorry. Your son, Kyle. I read the letter 3 times. Sat on my porch with it in my hands while the cherry blossoms fell around me like snow. Patricia arrived for dinner. Saw my face. What happened? I handed her the letter. She read it. Looked up. How do you feel? I don't know. Sad? Relieved? Empty? All of those seem reasonable. We sat in silence. The garden I'd planted was starting to show green shoots. Life pushing through dirt. Determined and relentless and beautiful in its persistence. Do you want to respond? Patricia asked. I don't know what I'd say. You don't have to say anything. The letter isn't asking for a response. It's just acknowledgement. She was right. Kyle wasn't asking for anything except to be seen. To have his understanding of what he'd done acknowledged. That was its own kind of growth, even if it came too late to fix what was broken. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not thrown away. Not prominently displayed. Just there. Existing. Like Kyle himself, part of my history but no longer part of my present. That night Patricia stayed late. We drank wine on the porch and watched the stars come out. Talked about her cases and my garden and the book I was planning to read to Sophie's class next week. You've built a good life, she said. Better than what you had before. Different, anyway. Better, she insisted. More honest. More yours. I thought about that. My small house. My small garden. My twice-weekly reading sessions. My Friday coffee with heart surgery survivors. My dinners with Patricia. Small pieces. But all mine. Not sacrificed. Not given away without acknowledgement. Not subject to someone else's moods or manipulations or decisions. Yeah, I said finally. Better. The following Monday I read Charlotte's Web to Sophie's class. She cried at the end. So did 3 other kids. Rachel Morrison passed around tissues and thanked me for bringing such a meaningful story. Sophie hugged me when class ended. Grandpa, can we go to the park sometime? Just us. I'd like that. Let me talk to your dad. He's sad all the time now. Him and Mom aren't living together anymore. I know, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to figure things out. Did you make mistakes too? Yes, different ones. But yes. What did you do? I thought about that question. About heart surgery and locked doors and notes in duffel bags and revenge that felt empty even when it succeeded. I learned that loving people doesn't mean letting them hurt you. And I learned that family is more than just blood. It's about who shows up when things get hard. Sophie thought about that. 7 years old and already navigating complexities that shouldn't exist in a child's world. You always showed up, Grandpa. Even when things were hard. I try, sweetheart. I try. I walked her back to class. Kyle was waiting in the hallway. We looked at each other. He'd gotten thinner. More worn. Life had ground him down the way it grinds everyone eventually. Can we talk? He asked. About. Sophie asked if she can visit you. At your house. I wanted to know if that's okay with you. Of course it's okay with me. Why wouldn't it be? Because I locked you out of your house and left you in the rain and destroyed everything we had. Because you have every right to say no. I do have that right, but I'm saying yes. For Sophie. Not for you. He nodded. Fair enough. Saturday afternoon? I'll drop her off at noon. Pick her up at 4. That works. We stood there in awkward silence. Then Kyle extended his hand. I looked at it. Thought about shaking it. About what that gesture would mean. I shook his hand. Brief. Professional. The kind of handshake you give a business acquaintance, not your son. He felt the difference. I saw it in his eyes. But he didn't push, just nodded and walked away. Saturday arrived bright and clear. I cleaned my small house, made sure the garden looked nice, bought ingredients for Sophie's favorite cookies. Kyle's car pulled up at noon exactly. Sophie jumped out, ran to my porch, hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years instead of days. Kyle stayed in the car, waved once, drove away. Sophie and I spent the afternoon in the garden. She helped me plant marigolds, got dirt under her fingernails and on her face and in her hair, laughed when a butterfly landed on her shoulder, asked a million questions about flowers and growing things and whether butterflies had favorite colors. We baked cookies. She stirred while I measured. Chocolate chip, her favorite. The house filled with the smell of butter and sugar and vanilla. The kind of smell that meant home and safety and normal Saturdays that didn't involve bankruptcy or foreclosure or families falling apart. At 4 o'clock, Kyle's car returned. Sophie saw it through the window and her face fell. "Do I have to go already?" "You do. But you can come back next week if you want." "Really? Really?" She hugged me, grabbed the container of cookies we'd packed for her to take home, ran to the car. Kyle got out, walked halfway up the path. Stopped. "Thank you," he said. "She's my granddaughter. I'll always make time for her." "I know. That's one of the things I destroyed. Your trust that I'd do the same for you." I didn't answer, because he was right, and there was nothing to say that would change it. He walked back to his car. Sophie waved from the window. I waved back, watched them drive away. Patricia called 10 minutes later. "How did it go?" "Perfect. Painful. Both. Want company for dinner?" "Always." She arrived with Thai food and wine. We sat on the porch in the fading light and ate pad Thai and talked about everything except Kyle and Michelle and the weight of families that broke and sometimes, if you were lucky, found new shapes. The months continued. Saturday afternoons with Sophie became routine. Kyle would drop her off at noon, pick her up at 4. We'd exchange minimal words, professional courtesies, the bare minimum required for the transfer of a child between grandfather and father. Sophie thrived during those afternoons. She learned the names of all the flowers in my garden, helped me harvest tomatoes, read books on my porch while I worked on puzzles, drew pictures that I framed and hung on my walls. On her 8th birthday, I gave her a card with information about her trust fund. Age appropriate, simple. "Your grandfather loves you very much and wants to make sure you can go to college and follow your dreams." She cried, hugged me. "You're the best grandpa ever." Kyle was waiting in the car, saw the card. His face went through several expressions I couldn't read. Then he nodded once. Acknowledgement, maybe acceptance, maybe just defeat. Patricia helped me celebrate that evening. Champagne on the porch. "To 8 years old and bright futures," she said. "To people who show up." Our glasses clinked. The heart surgery group held a 1-year anniversary gathering. 6 of us had survived, had made it through the first year of recovery and rebuilt our lives in various ways. We met at a nice restaurant and shared stories and laughed about the absurdity of almost dying and having to figure out how to live differently. "What's the biggest thing you learned?" someone asked. I thought about that question, about locked doors and duffel bags in the rain and revenge that felt empty and Saturday afternoons with my granddaughter planting marigolds. That sometimes losing everything is how you find out what actually matters. They nodded. They understood. We'd all lost something. Health, certainty, the illusion that life was predictable and fair. But we'd all gained something too. Perspective, gratitude, the knowledge that second chances were gifts you didn't waste. That night, I lay in bed in my small house and listened to the cherry trees rustling in the breeze. Thought about the journey from that hospital bed to here. From that moment when Dr. Richardson said 50-50 chance to now, when my heart was stronger than ever. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, all the ways a heart could be strong. I'd survived my son's betrayal. I'd survived the pain of losing my family. I'd survived the temptation to let revenge consume me completely. And I'd built something better, something honest, something mine. The weight of family would always be there, but I'd learned to carry it differently now. not as obligation or sacrifice or endless giving without acknowledgement, but as love for a granddaughter who drew rainbows, as friendship with a woman who showed up, as Saturday afternoons in a garden full of marigolds and tomatoes and hope. That was enough. That would always be enough. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions in the comments below.